So we're going on with life management, and we're in section 6. And this section is entitled Living Courteously. And it talks about manners. When I was like in high school, I was brought to, I was actually working for a conservation corps. And so they picked out certain young people and they brought them to have dinner with the governor, the governor of Iowa. And they picked me. And so I had to go to the governor's table. You can imagine I was like, do I really know table manners? I never really, considered, what do you eat and what kind of manners do you have at the table? And that was pretty important. So then I would watch what everybody would do first and I would do that. And I'd just be sensitive the way they did things. And so now, even when as a missionary, traveling the world, I always look at how, their manners of that culture go, so that I'm not doing something that's not courteous to them, or that is, that is out of line, which would, make them look down on them in any way. So basically, manners are, in the situations that you're at, is to look to see what is the norm for them, and just be patient and ask the Lord too, make sure that I'm courteous to these people and that I treat them kindly and fairly, and to be sensitive to their hearts. So this section has to do, it starts out, with the playing basketball. How would you like to play basketball and you didn't know the rules? It'd be kind of hard, wouldn't it? Everybody would be laughing at you, right? So you need to know the rules. You need to know the customs sometimes. You need to know the rules of courtesy and etiquette in our life. And this will give you confidence when you do. So in America, in our lives, some of these things are considered pretty courteous, or you would, as a Christian, to be able to come into a situation and to act, have morals and manners both. But see, morals and manners here, they say, are not the same thing. A moral person may not have good manners yet because they were raised with not manners, and they still moral. They want to do what God wants to do. An immoral person that is totally like bad person, get careless and everything, sometimes they can have good manners because they know how to play people, don't they? So morals have to do with our inner heart and our inner springs, what our heart, the way our heart is, and if our heart's focused on Jesus Christ, that's morality. But manners are external things that we do, right? So manners are not quite as important here, but they are in certain situations, especially if we're going to just go out and say, I can do anything. I'm going to put my feet up on the table here, we're at somebody's house. They're going to look and say, get your feet off my table and get out of my house, right? You're going to cause problems in there. So good manners, the outworking rule is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. To be courteous, has to be learned a lot of times, because we're all kind of born selfishly. A baby grabs toys, from their playmates, hits another little kid, and a baby doesn't care if he screams at night to get their parents' attention. Those are babies, but we have to grow up from our baby stage into adults that love the Lord, right? And we have to get away from this selfish, babyish, obnoxious, immature attitude. Now, I'm not saying you're that way, but there's a lot of young people that are, that. So we have to grow to maturity and be consideration, be considerate of others. And that's the golden rule, outworking golden rule. So, being courteous and having etiquette, having the right etiquette in a certain situation will give us confidence. It will make our social acceptability better, that people look on us different, like, oh wow, they're really mannerly, they're really nice people. Or sometimes it can maybe even make us lose a job. If we come into a job interview and we're obnoxious and we don't have any manners, they don't want to hire you, So good manners are important. Proper behavior goes on. To have proper behavior we need to recognize a lot of times, status and position and age in society. So we need to treat elders, correctly, as distinguished, and honor them. We need to be respectful of teachers. We need to be respectful of pastors. We need to be respectful of police officers or anyone, in that position, position of helping us. We need to be respectful for them. And Romans 13:7 says, "Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom is due, fear to whom fear is due, honor to whom honor is due." Romans 13:7. To honor those that deserve honor, to give tribute to those that deserve tribute, and as their customs, to customly honor them as their customs, to become all things to win those for Jesus Christ, is what Paul is doing. Okay, now we're going to go over some things about what manners look like in America or wherever we travel in the world. So introducing people. So a friend comes in. We need to introduce our friend to our parents or anybody's there. We bring a friend in and say, "Hey, we're just going downstairs. See you later." No. We need to introduce them to our parents. That is mannerly. Introduce our friends to friends. So if we have a friend, another friend comes up, we could stop the conversation and say, "Oh, I'd like to introduce Jake here. I'd like to introduce you to Alice," or whatever their names. Introduce people. That's kind of hard sometimes, especially if you forget their name like I do. So I'm like, okay, Lord, please give me their name. And if I got to introduce them to remember names. So it's kind of important that we try to remember people's names. And, to basically, not to treat a friend like they don't exist. So you're there and you're with one friend, another friend. So you start talking to that friend, and you walk away and you forget about the other friend. That is very rude. So make sure you introduce and offer the friends to be both into your conversation. Don't just take off and with your other friend into a different conversation or wherever and forget about the one lonely friend that you was sitting there first. Not a good thing. So it says introducing people make you nervous, but to step out and relax. Just relax. Don't have to say, "Oh, I got to introduce this person to my mom and dad," or "I have to introduce this person, this policeman here," or whatever. It's don't get all nervous. Just relax. Name of the honored person should be given first. So if you're honored, what are honored people? Well, for one thing, women, always should be first. Ladies first is the rule, And then an older person should be honored over a younger person. And guests, but guests take first. So if a guest comes to your house, a guest should always be first honored. So basically you should introduce the guest first, then introduce, the women or the elderly first, before. It's just the way proper etiquette goes. First, the guest takes first honored, and then women, and then older people, or maybe older people or women, either way. So make introductions immediately, right away. Introduce them. Okay, don't go on with your conversation. "Oh, excuse me, here. Did you know here? This is my teacher. This is my teacher, Mrs. Andrews. I want to introduce, or this is my friend here is introduced." Do it right away. So don't just keep going and going, and then later on introduce them. So this puts strangers at ease. If a stranger's there, if a stranger comes in, to your house and everything, make sure, or you're introducing someone that's strange to your parents, make sure you do it right away. So then it won't be awkward. So you've already introduced them. Go on to rules of life. Okay, here's some rules. So when a woman, say a woman stands when introduced to someone older or more distinguished. Otherwise, she remains seated. So as a woman, take myself, an older woman comes in or something, I'll stand up and introduce myself. Or with somebody more distinguished, that seems more distinguished, that we're honoring, I would stand up. Otherwise, I don't have to stand up. If a man comes to me and he introduces, I don't have to stand up necessarily with men. A man should stand when introduced to a lady. So if you're introduced to a lady, stand up, don't just sit there and like, okay, hi there, how you doing? Go ahead and stand up. When there's a lady in the room, a man should stand. When a lady enters the room, even it says that the man should stand until she's seated. That's etiquette. A man shakes hands with another man. Nice shake. I'm saying, if you're Israel, shake a good shake with that man's hand, not a wimpy shake. Shake hands. Look them in the eye too when you shake hands. It's important. So, but a man doesn't necessarily want to shake hands with a lady. So if a lady wants to shake hands, she'll put out her hands to shake, right? To shake her hands. She'll say, oh, and she'll shake hands. But a man doesn't just grab a lady's hand and shake their hands. That's not etiquette, okay? So, but if a woman offers your hand to him, then you can shake it. That's etiquette. So, conversing. So what do you say? Show interest, have you lived here very long? What school did you go to before? Hey, do you know what kind of hobbies do you have? Those would be good conversation. So, and then you can say something about yourself, but ask them questions. Don't just you talk. Let them talk about themselves too. If you talk all the time, they're going to say, oh man, that person is so boring. Some women do that. They'll come in, considering I have to do that sometimes. They're talking too much. They're just like, they lose, like, oh, I don't even know what she's talking about anymore. That's not good. Avoid too many questions, and there's certain questions you don't want to ask them because they're going to wonder, what motives do you have? Like, how much money do you earn? Or how old are you? For a woman would get mad, especially a woman my age would get mad and say, well, how old are you? I'm not telling you, bub, you guess, whatever, especially women. Men don't usually care how we ask that question. How much money do you have in the bank? Not a good question. Hey, how is your marriage going now? Not a good question. You gotta use common sense, right? How about, are those your own eyelashes? There's other questions you can ask, or did you just get Botox done? Or those things are not things you want to ask, right? So do not stand so close to a person. You should give them at least 18 inches to be comfortable. The people have personal space. If you get right up to them, I have a friend that always gets right up to me and talks to me like this, I'm like, okay, I can get back a little bit, So it's important to give people space when you're talking to them, personal space. Look at a person in their eye, give them full attention, and always treat an adult with respect, Another thing here says responding to invitations. If you get an invitation to a wedding, it says RSVP. That means répondez, s'il vous plaît. Basically, it's French that means please reply. If it says regrets only, then you can only reply. If you can't go, or reply. But if it doesn't say regrets only, then you need to RSVP. Either call them or send them an RSVP if you're going to their event or not. So just to know that. So if it says regrets only, that means only if you're not going, you respond. Always arrive at the designated time when you're invited. Don't be late. Don't be early. If you're too early, the hostess might not be ready and she might be embarrassed. So don't be too early. Don't be too late. It's very important. It's worse being late, because if they have to wait on you for a dinner, they're not going to be happy with you because they want their dinner hot and ready. And they're sitting around waiting for you to come. They're not going to be happy because they want to eat it when it's good, right? So always arrive at a designated time. I already went over that. When you are a guest, when you are a guest, so you're a guest at somebody's house, and you're staying there at somebody's house. You should always fit into their schedule, you know. If they're going to go to bed, you should go to bed. When they're getting up, you should get up. Unless they say, oh, you could sleep in today. You know, don't be sleeping in, you know, and they're up and about. You should always get up unless the host says, okay, you know, you should sleep in. Be prompt to the meals when they're fixing meals. Don't make them wait for meals. Or if you can't be at a meal, make sure, oh, I can't be there, you know, that's fine. Go to church with them. If they're going to church, you should go to church. You know, like, I don't want to go to church. No, you should go to church if you're at a guest at somebody's house. Limit your time in the bathroom. Be neat. Wash out the sink. Wash out the bathtub. You know, do not spread your toiletries and your toothpaste and all the stuff all over the place and take over the bathroom if you're sharing the bathroom with someone. You know, wipe everything down. Mirrors, you know, don't spit all over the mirror and just leave it there. You know, make sure clean up your mess. You know, fold up the bed very neatly, you know, instead of just leaving your whole room like a mess with the bedding on the floor and everything. We had some kids staying in our house, and I wouldn't want to come back and stay because they were making such big messes. It was ridiculous. I was like, okay, you know, you're just hanging out here. You don't really care about us, you know. So that's what I thought, you know. So be neat. Write thank you notes afterwards. If you're staying at somebody else at their parents' house, you know, say, thank you for the good food. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for having me. You know, thank you for your hospitality. They'll love you forever if you send them thank you notes. That's for sure. Because they'll know that you're considerate. And when I say send a note, you can send them a note or just leave a note. Write a note and just leave it on your bed or something. A note to encourage them for their hospitality. So, okay. Now, you need to look in the book at this because we're going to go into table manners. Table manners. Back in the medieval times, which weren't too long ago, you know, they didn't have forks and knives and stuff, and so they just basically threw their food at the end of the table. That's pretty barbaric, isn't it? But today we have forks and spoons and knives for certain things that we're eating, and we have to get used to doing that, especially if we're at someone's home that has a lot of etiquette. You're formally at a dinner or at a restaurant with a formal dinner. You know, you can't just throw your food around, right? Or you can't just rub your food and eat it with your hands, you know, so it's important. Basically, the rule of thumb, whichever culture you're in, is to always start from the outside with, you know, the spoons on the outside and use them first to work to the inside. There's some pictures, you know. There's a if I had the book I would show you, but there's a picture of a plate. You'll have your knife, you know, on the inside of the plate, then your spoon on this side and your fork on this side, and then other forks on this side. And up in the left hand, you know, have your glasses. That's rule of thumb. Look at the pictures there and you can see. But not always did they all set tables with that etiquette. Some countries set them a little different. But of course, basic rule of thumb to work from the outside, you know. Don't wolf down your food. Some people do. Like, oh, they're done in 2 minutes. Not a good habit. And eating slowly is better for your health too. So don't just wolf down your food. Don't slurp. Don't slurp. Don't drop crumbs all over the place. You know, those things. Just have, you know, good manners at your meal. So wait for the hostess to begin eating first. Unless she says, oh, you can begin eating. Don't start eating until the hostess sits down and takes her first bite or his first bite. If someone's making the food and everything, just wait on them to sit down, and then they take a bite, then you can begin eating. A lot of times you wait for the blessing to be said at the table too. Sometimes if you start eating and then all of a sudden they say, okay, we're all going to say the blessing, and you've already ate half your food, is not very mannerly. So elbows off the table. Sitting there with your elbows on your table or anything else on the table, feet on the table, those kind of things. Of course, you wouldn't do that, but in some cultures, you're sitting down low. You don't want to do the wrong thing. So take small bites that are easy to chew and cut your food one piece at a time. Don't come in and cut all your food up, all of your food, then eat. Just cut one piece at a time, eat it. That's what the manners are, right? So break your bread into small pieces before you butter it. Don't just take a big chunk of bread. No, take a little small piece, then butter and eat it, of your bread. Cut your bread or break your bread and eat it that way. So that's mannery. Chew with your mouth closed. Not a good idea. Chew with your mouth closed. Ask someone to please pass if you want something. Don't just reach over and grab things. Not good. If you spill something on, you can actually take, if you spill something on the table, you can take your fork or spoon and pick it up and put it on your plate so it's not spilled on the table. Or, you can take your napkin, or if you spill something on you, you can take your napkin and, wipe it off with some water or whatever from your glass. However, that is etiquette. So, burping, always say, excuse me. People burp, it's okay, but say, excuse me. After you're done, the best thing is just take your knife and fork and just put it across your plate. Don't just leave it on the nice, say that they have tablecloth. Instead of getting the tablecloth all yucky, just put your nice knife and spoon across your plate if you're done. Or if you have to leave, just put your knife and fork or spoon across your plate. That's etiquette. If you have to leave, say, excuse me, please. May I be excused? It's a good thing to say. When you're passing pitchers and stuff, pass them handle first so they can grab onto the handle. Instead of passing them this way, then they have to try to grab them when they could spill the pitcher, right? So always do handle first as you passing this. Now this is like restaurant etiquette too, Ellie, so it's important. Okay? Don't talk with your mouth full, blah, blah, blah. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. It's not good. Don't just talk to one person, but talk to the whole group if you're in a family home, I mean, of course, in your restaurant, it's just you and that one person, but try to get everybody in the conversation. Okay, let's see. Do not tell hostess you don't like something, like, ooh, that's gross, and they cooked it. No, just say, oh, I really don't like that. Instead, you can eat a little and just leave it and just don't say anything, and they'll know. But don't make fun of their cooking, right? Always say please and thank you. Those things. When you have a dish that they're serving, like a dish of potatoes, use the serving spoon. Don't grab your spoon from your plate and dig in, right? Don't double dip, those kind of things. But don't dip in with your spoon that you already ate on. That's not a good thing to do. On to the public audience. When you're in public and someone is speaking, is a speaker, and you're listening, maybe at church, maybe a teacher speaking or someone speaking and you're listening. Don't be chewing gum and giggling and whispering and writing notes and on your phone constantly. Those things are not good, especially if you have a public speaker that's interested in sharing something with you, or so those things. Public speakers are always aware of their audience, and they can see in the audience if someone is not listening and just sitting back and being disrespectful. Don't do that. Be a good listener. So if you are sharing a room with someone, like, now you guys are not going to college, but in a college dorm is what they're talking about, and you're sharing with a roommate, don't be a slob. Your roommate's not going to want to live with you, that's for sure. Pick up your clothes, especially your underwear. Don't leave your underwear in the middle of the room, and stuff. Straighten up, your desk. So when you get older, when you get married, you're going to want to do these things too, because you want to be considerate of others, Don't just leave your dirty shoes out there and socks and such, The Bible says, look not every man on his own ways, but let everyone also look on the ways of others. Just look on the ways of others. Be considerate of others. That's Philippians 2:4. See others' perspective. On the public scene, things that people do that you should be aware of not to do, don't be rude to a store clerk. Don't be rude to a waitress or a hostess. Be nice to them. Think of them. There's so many people that are just rude because they think they're nothing or whatever. They're just rude. Don't be rude. Don't go butt in line someplace. Don't push ahead of others to get them out of the way or through a crowd. Don't, if you're in a train, or say you're in a public metro system or subway system, and an elderly person comes on, or a handicap, or a bus, give them their seat. Give up your seat to the elderly. That is true, being kind and being respectful. If there's a pedestrian and you are driving and that pedestrian is going, stop for the pedestrian, especially in a pedestrian place where they're supposed to go across. Wait for them to go across the street. Don't run them over or scare them, right? Okay. And if you're in a car too, make room be considerate in a car. Make room as one car's pulling out, another car's pulling out. Stop and let other cars in. That's etiquette. And don't start honking your horn over and over when somebody makes a mistake, or say somebody's going slow. Maybe there's a reason they're going slow. Don't sit there, honk, honk. Not a good thing to do. Be kind. God sees you, and you need to give acts of kindness. When you bump into somebody, say, "Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me." Say that. Just bump into people and stuff. So. What else? This is a good section, isn't it? I kind of like it because it reminds us of, you could see certain people doing certain things and what we don't want to do. So another says other cultures. Try to learn their language. If you go to some culture, try to learn a little bit of their language. Now, you may make blunders in the language, but they're going to know, but at least you're trying, And what else? Just try to find out some of their cultural things, so they're not misunderstood. I remember we were in Africa, and one of the guys, John Farewell, who is a diesel mechanic, and he had to introduce one of the other ladies, and we had to get up and introduce ourselves, and we had to introduce somebody else, and that was in our team. And we were there, and all of these people were listening, and he was trying to, tell them they had some translators too, but they could kind of understand English. And so he gets up and he says, "Okay, tell about me," told about himself. And he says, "Now I want to introduce this very important person. She's kind of organized everything. She's the big kahuna." And then he went on, and everybody, their eyes got, because you know what kahuna means in their language? Devil. He said, "She's the big devil." You didn't know that. So be careful when you're saying words out of their culture that they don't understand. She's the big kahuna. That means in our language, that means she's the leader of the pack, or she's the one that's in charge of everything. But to them, and kahuna, that means devil. So we just have to be careful in other people's, in other language and other people's culture, to kind of know their culture, so we don't make any really foolish mistakes, right? So just be observant, and be kind and be considerate, and think, what would Jesus do? So this is the end of this chapter. So you're probably like, "Oh, great, Grandma, we got finished." But I hope that I can pray, and that your lives are going to be totally joyous and filled with His presence, and that God's blessings. And I think a lot of the blessings come a way we act towards others. And so it's important for us to look unto Jesus. Jesus loves you guys so much, and so do I.